Hey, this is Simon. Let me just check my sound stuff. Let's turn off that capture. We've got this capture. Boom, I am live. How's it going? I'm just going to do a quick one tonight. I'm still a bit, I'm not actually prepared for the show. I'm still a bit jet lagged. I was in America all week. I had a very good time in Seattle. Thanks to everyone on Facebook who made recommendations about that. Good to see you, Mr. Cordy Chap. Let's make it all chat. Not that that makes a difference. Look, I just wanted to, so I'm behind on news. I've got to catch up. I haven't really been updating my magazine like I normally do, so I'm just going to keep it very simple. One big announcement, September 1st, mark it in your calendar if you're in Tokyo or coming to Tokyo. Saturday, September 1st, 7 PM to 9 PM is the annual. We skipped it last year because Victor and I were both traveling at the time, but this year we are doing it. We are doing the YouTube summer party at the Tokyo Sports Cafe in Roppongi like we do every year. That will be awesome. We've got the same deal, 3,000 yen, nomi hodai. We're going to set up there early. Probably better if you want to avoid, hey, believe in yourself, good to see you. If you want to get in there and avoid the queue, we had 100 people show up all at 7 o'clock last year, so it took, you lose that time on the nomi hodai, so I suggest getting in 6:30, 6:45 actually. We'll try to set up the desk early. But the nomi hodai starts at 7 to 9. We'll be able to go all night in the place. It's right in the middle of Roppongi if you want to go out. And it will be awesome. I'm going to see if we can get some people. Boom. I said boom, Quint, but I'll say it again because I know this was done on short notice, so boom. Good to see you. And yeah, just reiterating. In fact, I'll probably come back to this again at the end of the show, but September 1st, 7 PM, Tokyo Sports Cafe, Roppongi, 3,000 yen, the annual summer party right in the heart of Roppongi. Nomi hodai, 2 hours. It's pretty good for the location right in the middle of Roppongi. You can stay there all night, as Victor and I often do, or you can go out into other clubs or bars or whatever around Roppongi, but why not stay? It's a great place. And the Tokyo Sports Cafe have been an excellent host to us. They've got heaps of screens. I'm going to use my Chan TV to actually set up some channels, which will play the channels of sign-ups so that you'll just be able to watch people's videos in the background while we are there. Bit more of a sizzle at the moment. Well, that's right. So just to explain again, I am jet lagged. I got back yesterday. I'm not prepared for this at all. In fact, I'm going to probably try to get a good night's sleep tonight. So I'm going to keep it kind of quiet. That said, I don't know, I might play some tunes or whatever, but I'm at your disposal if you've got topics or anything for me. I'm not really up on the news. Of course, the Football World Cup, soccer in New Zealand speak, Shazam, indeed, Sergeant Bilko, good to see you, is underway. I suppose there's some good games on tonight, Serbia, Costa Rica, and later on, I think there's some better games later tonight, but yes, I quite like watching the World Cup, although New Zealand isn't participating. No, there is the United States this time. With my Chan TV, there are some updates currently in the works. I'm hoping we're going to get those out really soon because I do want to come back to the idea of building an app and doing a Kickstarter for building the app version of it. But I really want to get the web version of it final. Just get the bugs out. There's still a couple of bugs which we've been working on for a couple of weeks. They're currently being tested in offline versions. Sweden, South Korea, that'd be a good game, Sergeant Bilko. I didn't actually realise that was on. I must admit I've not been following the schedule. I've been following the rugby, which has been going on instead. When I was away, what did I watch? I didn't really watch. I was watching mostly Netflix on the plane. Hey J-Vlog, good to see you. Welcome back, and thank you very much, James Kelly and Dave O'Hunter. Good to see you all. Like I said, I'm completely unprepared for tonight, so unless you give me stuff to talk about, I'm just going to keep it short. I do have one big announcement that I will repeat, which is the YouTube Summer Party. It is back this year, September 1st, 7 PM at the Tokyo Sports Cafe, 3,000 yen, nomi hodai, it's awesome. Given the setup there as well, we can put people on YouTube screens all over the place, so I'll set that up using my Chan TV. I'm also going to see if I can maybe get 1 or 2 people to maybe sing or perform a little bit. We'll try to do some, try to make it fun. It's fun anyway. We don't only us have to be there. Talk about Trump. How about no? I mean, what a huge horse's ass. But there again, it's like, he's the horse's ass that the American people made president. So, it's, I don't know. If a horse's ass gets elected president, what do you get angry at? The horse's ass or the people who made the horse's ass the president? Reality TV star versus the movie fan. I don't understand. Oh, you mean, no, I'm not sure I quite understand what you mean by that, Quint, although if you elaborate, I can maybe dig down into that. You always get refused. There's a bit of news that really caught your attention that alarmed you, which is that person who was killed by a Shinkansen. I read about that as well. In fact, maybe two big news stories actually in the last couple of weeks. Trump versus Kim. Okay, got you. Okay, well these are good topics, so let's go through them. First thing, Airbnb. Lots of news. I actually posted an article on that tonight. Of course, they had to suddenly cancel thousands of reservations on short notice. I'm in two minds about this. Yes, the government screwed it up, but there again, Airbnb as well. I mean, basically, Airbnb in Japan is based upon, one. They say that there was a grey area of the law, but certainly there is a law that you have to have, certain safety, there are certain requirements when you use your apartment for hosting people, like when you rent it out, starting with the fact that it's got to be permitted by the landowner, right? This is the other thing. Most Airbnbs are, of course, illegal sublets. But recognizing that the beneficial role of Airbnb and wanting it, that a lot of people were using it, the government did decide to basically put up a framework to allow, Airbnb type places to operate, but they had to register, and that registration included having proof that they had permission to use the apartment for that purpose. A lot of apartment places do not want people starting hotels in the middle of their apartment complexes, and it's really up to the landlord there. So, of course, when they brought this law in, it was pretty predictable that a lot of Airbnb places would not be able to operate anymore. And yet, knowing that these rules were coming in, and in spite of all of that, Airbnb kept negotiating to the last minute, trying to get like a grace period, or trying to keep basically making money and taking people's money for this. The government could have done it a lot better. They could have actually given a longer notice period or whatever, and perhaps not even negotiated. Might have made it a little bit clearer. But in the end of the day, they gave that notice that by mid-June, I think it's already in effect now. That they had to stop accepting reservations for non-registered Airbnbs at once, or they'd be subject to penalties. And Airbnb, not wanting to get punished by the government, went and cancelled 80% of these, hundreds of thousands of, tens of thousands of reservations all at once, which, the government, in the end, you could say by having such a short notice, screwed the tourists, but there again, so did Airbnb. I mean, they knew the risks of their model, and they could have taken, they could have prepared much better for this. So that kind of screwed things up. So that's one thing that I wanted to mention. Okay, the reality TV star Mr. Trump. Well, I've never actually seen The Apprentice, actually, so I'd forgotten about that. But he's indeed versus the movie fan. Well, what's there to say? I mean, I don't know. It was just a circus. I mean, again, I was working during the week, and I was in America, so I wasn't able to keep up with it all that well. Although, from what I understand, Trump basically in exchange for nothing. I mean, after going through something like a drunken rampage at the G7, he then marched over to Singapore, where he met Kim, and basically in exchange for nothing, agreed to cancel the defense exercises between South Korea and America, which he said would save America a lot of money. I.e., it's almost like he was just using it as an excuse to cancel the defense exercises to protect South Korea, which is all part of the idea of not wanting to spend money on global security responsibilities. And in exchange for nothing, I mean, North Korea didn't really have to promise anything out of it. So, it does appear, to his credit, if I'm going to give him credit, it appears that the abductee issue was raised and that the door was opened on that. Certainly Japan has been clear and consistent that it's not going to pay for Trump's wall to North Korea unless something is done about the abductee issue. And there again, if that's really on the table, well, maybe North Korea will be incentivized to do that this time. However, the follow-up on that aspect of it as well is that the Japanese government has said they're not rushing to meet him unless they can actually see that they're going to actually follow through on their promises this time. And just to recap on where that's at, after North Korea released some abductees, and Japan said, okay, well, where are the other abductees before you get a deal? North Korea's like, you give us a deal and we'll give you the other abductees. And Japan's like, are you kidding? Tell us what's happened to the other abductees first. Verify them. Red Cross investigation. That Red Cross investigation, whether it was being performed or not, they appeared to demonstrate that they were doing the investigation. I mean, the investigation, they are holding them, they know where they are. But they appeared to be following through that to see if there would be signs on the Japanese side that they would ease up on sanctions. And when Japan didn't show any sign that it was going to ease up on its sanctions, North Koreans just said, well, we're not going to come any further cleaner. We've been hosed on this, we're not going to release any more abductees. It's really hostages for money situation, and the ball was in North Korea's court when everything finished. So if it starts again, there might be something good out of it for Japan. In terms of for America, I mean, I don't really know what America had as goals going into this in the first place. the idea of North Korea giving up all of its nuclear weapons, I mean, it doesn't sound like he even asked them to do that. In which case, you got to ask, what was the objective other than having a bit of a circus there in Singapore? That said, America made a massive concession to North Korea that North Korea has agitated for violently for years. So I mean, it was a huge victory for North Korea, both for the fact that it showed, you know, Kim and Trump at the same table, you know, and I don't know. It looks to me like America wasn't even trying to get anything out of this. And people distinguish Trump and America, but I don't. America chose Trump. Trump won the election pretty clear, you know, by the Electoral College, which is the way that the American president gets selected. It's on a geographic basis. He comfortably won the election, and this is what people wanted. They wanted just sort of empty, vacuous reality TV as the presidency, and you've got it. I mean, you know, and here we are now. They're basically now tearing children away from parents of immigrants, and they're doing all this sort of stuff. I mean, it's just insane what's happening in America right now. But people voted for it. You got your dramatic stuff. It aggravates me so much. This is why I don't want to talk about it. I'm a big fan of America. I love my week in America just now. I love American people I meet, and that's why it's so disappointing that America's done this and that they're doing this over and over at the moment. So that is that. Maybe we'll see a change to Art 9 as a result of Trump's performance. Again, I don't know what Art 9 is, but I'm sure. Yeah, Canada just... Again, the G7 was a farce, but it was a farce in every direction. I mean, I don't know, threatening to, you know, asking... I guess everyone focuses on Trump. I know it wasn't just Trump. One thing, I'll give Trump a little bit of credit for example, I mean, right now, America is looking terrible for all the tariffs that it's imposing on everyone. And I agree. I disagree with putting tariffs on everyone. Well, I've got a very free trade mentality. But that said, China's suddenly like the voice of free trade. You know, you can't set up a business in China without having a local business partner and it's more than 50% owned. I mean, the restrictions, the lack of reciprocity on trade that China's always had, you know, the idea of China to scream blue murder over American tariffs, you know, is pretty rich coming from them. They've never had equal or fair or open trade. You know, they've demanded it of others and never given it. So again, I mean, on the one hand, what Trump's doing is pretty shitty, and I disagree with it. At the same time, maybe his hardball will pay off with countries, and you know, I mean, Canada on, you know, again, Canada screaming over tariffs, but you know, Canada's position on agriculture, for example, is what's screwing up the deals with the EU, and there are legitimate counterpoints to that. So you know, no one's really got their hands clean on this, but it's kind of interesting when you throw a complete, you know, out of control, retarded bull in the room like we have. You know, we'll see how that gets mixed up, but yeah, the whole thing is just aggravating to watch, if you ask me. Okay, so let's let's see what other topics we've got here. Actually, we've got. I'm going to look this way, so it looks like I'm looking at the screen, and I actually look at this. Trump versus Kim. The government could have done a lot better. Yes. The psychopath versus the megalomaniac. Yes. G7 PR stunt, little achieved. That's pretty much it. North Korea actually did pretty well out of it. Maybe we'll see. Auntie Leanna, female symbol. Hello, yes indeed, Auntie Leanna, good to see you. Japan's Constitution, Article 9, says Quinn. Okay, we'll talk about Japan's Constitution, Article 9, of course. Well, interesting, the Japanese Constitution was originally drafted by some university students on a one-week assignment, a bit like the Breakfast Club, if you sort of think about it. It was thrown together, translated into Japanese. It was actually run through and approved by the 1953 Japanese Parliament at the end of the occupation, but it was de facto written and imposed on Japan. So on the one hand, Japan's got, you know, a very, very, what's considered, you know, one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. But really, the true reason that America has Japan has such a progressive constitution is because, you know, it wasn't written by people who were going to impose it on themselves. So of course, you could always be much more idealistic when you can force a constitution on somebody else. Now that said, as idealistic as it was, and despite the role of GHQ in drafting it, that said, it was adopted by the Japanese people willingly, and it was adopted in a manner. The Japanese constitution is practically impossible to amend. I mean, you need basically referendum plus 2/3 government plus, you know, I think there's like 2 or 3 in both houses of parliament need to pass by 2/3. We are ironically in a place at the moment where the Japanese LDP is in a position to do that, and they are considering, and Abe really wants to change it. The situation with Abe and why he wants to change it specifically to get rid of Article 9 among other things, although it looks like they're not going to take the leap on Article 9, is that Abe recognizes it pretty much for what it is, which is that it's a punishment constitution that was imposed on Japan, and Abe knows this because his father was a post-war, was a during the war munitions minister and a post-war prime minister of Japan. I mean, he knows firsthand the context of how that constitution came to be. And when Japanese in the LDP have talked about Japan wanting to normalize and act like a normal country in the world that participates in collective defense and, you know, has basically normal defense relationships to the extent that such relationships at the moment can be said to be normal, you know, why should Japan be like Costa Rica involuntarily if it's willing to actually contribute to collective defense and so on? And I think it's all up to Japan. You know, I mean, the bar is set so high. If they want to change it, they should change it. The idea that Japan needs to have Article 9 from an external perspective because everyone's afraid of it turning into, you know, World War II Japan again, I think that's ridiculous. The idea that, you know, the world needs to deny Japan that right to have that choice is ridiculous. I've lived in Japan 20 years. I don't think there'd be any better national citizen country to have, to not have Article 9. That said, of course, Article 9 has contributed to Japan's prosperity post-war, and it's widely supported by the Japanese population that acknowledges that, one, this has contributed to Japanese wealth, two, it basically means that Japan's one of the very few countries. If you grow up in America, you know, if you've got kids, it used to be you have to be afraid of the draft, and now even if you are not afraid, you know, even if you don't have the draft anymore, it still is true that in parts of America where, for example, there's high unemployment or not much in the way of job or training prospects, no chance of going to college, of your family being able to pay for you to go to college. Same in Australia, by the way. The best way to get all of that, to get ahead in life, is to take that risk of getting killed, joining the military and having to serve in action, and this is what happens now. I mean, you know, in the US military service is a shortcut to advancement but also death. And this is basically the trade. These countries take advantage of their poor in order to wage wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the participants of which don't understand why they're there. And Japan is saved from that by Article 9 of the Constitution, and most people continue to vote for it, even though the elites of Japan, just like the elites of America, you know, want to be able to fight wars. Personally, I grew up in a military family. I think Japan has, I mean, they've got the 6th highest military spend in the world. They should be able to contribute more and more directly to international peacekeeping. They should be able to defend themselves when they participate in peacekeeping and not be allowed to use firearms or anything like that. I think the idea of normalizing is totally fine, but that said, I also think, because I'm not a Japanese citizen, that's up to them. That's my opinion. Article 9, there you go. Liana and PR. Oh, you're saying hello to people. I thought you were asking me about permanent residence, which you can ask me about, but I see you're just saying hello to each other. Quint, you've read that 1,000 years ago, give or take, the Ryukyu Kingdom had to play off Japan and China against each other. Is Japan in a similar position today with China and the US? Well, for a start, it wasn't 1,000 years ago. Ryukyu was only it was only actually incorporated into Japan in about 1870. It was incorporated just before Taiwan and Korea and Dalian and parts of Manchuria online, mainland China, and Sakhalin Island. So, you know, there was actually, that's kind of funny. There were like during the Meiji period, which is basically the modern period of Japan. You know, Ryukyu was an independent country / kingdom. Before it was actually, you know, well into the modern period, and, you know, 150 years ago, a very short period of time ago. It was kind of closer to Japan, certainly when China was more powerful, which was really until about 200 or 300 years ago. It was in an awkward position. It paid tribute to China, as did Korea, as did just about any other country. Japan did not, but almost every country and kingdom around China paid basically bribes, protection money to China. China considers that every territory and country that paid protection money to it, that was a sign of a recognition of Chinese ultimate sovereignty, and that it was just sort of a hands-off libertarian kingdom that would allow states' rights, but it would basically come around and, just to remind everyone who's in charge, tell them to pay taxes. And taking tribute as a form of tax, China considers that Okinawa and Korea and other places were part of China. Don't say that ever to Korean people. They'll get very, very upset. It's true, however, that Okinawa was in a position where Japan exerted increasing influence over Korea, over Okinawa, while continuing to pay tribute. While Okinawa continued to pay tributes to China. Actually, similar position, by the way, in Korea in the build-up to the colonization. Is Japan in a similar position today between China and the US? Is it paying money to China? or paying money to the US while cozying up to China? No, I don't think so. The thing is that I suppose the equivalent, if we were to equate the situation during the the Edo period of where Ryukyu was in between Japan and China, Ryukyu was, if anything, it was closer to China. It was certainly, I think, independent. That's what most historians, I think, accept, that paying tribute wasn't sovereignty. That's just China being megalomaniac. It was an independent country, but it was certainly more afraid of and more influenced by and more in the political sovereign sphere of China. However, Japan had strong influence in Okinawa. So basically it was Japan was sort of influencing by stealth. And again, in spite of, there's all sorts of views on whether Japan was a sinister or friendly influence, but I think the idea is obviously it was both. But the thing was, everyone was universally very afraid of China, and China's power is what everybody sort of respected and kept in line, and when people weren't looking, it was quietly sort of cozying up to Japan. Of course, the eventual annexation of Okinawa, by the way, itself very controversial. It was basically done by coercion when Japan was starting to militarize. It was a dress rehearsal for the colonization of Taiwan and Korea. But that said, the situation right now, I don't think you could equate Okinawa's relationship with Japan during the Edo period with Japan's current relationship with China. I think Japan is still pretty afraid of China. I don't know. Actually, the more that I think about it, that's an interesting one. Clearly, right now, Japan pays tribute to China, to the United States. Japan pays for the U.S. military bases in Japan. They basically pay a whole bunch of protection money every time U.S. asks for it, in terms of international military spending and so on. So, but the idea that Japan is secretly trying to displace America and trying to cozy up to China, or China is trying to displace America as like Japan's preferred ally, I don't really see that happening yet. That said, of course, China is pretty overtly making moves. One, they allegedly spend money on supporting activist groups and political groups in democratic countries to influence parties favorable to their agenda. This happens in New Zealand, this happens in America, this happens in Australia. Certainly there's rumors it's happening in Japan. There's the right-wingers routinely allege that the Okinawan anti-US based protesters are funded by China, which would make sense. It would be illegal, but it would make sense. It's kind of a defaming allegation. But I don't think that Japan is in any way rushing towards... I think there is a risk that, indeed, if America does decline, which it seems to be really wanting to do at the moment, that China might, an assertive China, might rush in to fill the gap and force Japan against its will, as Okinawa was really forced against its will into incorporation with Japan in a hurried way in 1870. That could happen. I don't think we're quite at that point, but yeah, certainly Japan's always tried to keep cordial relations with China because it's so economically dependent on it, but I don't think political union with China in the way that Japan saw with Okinawa is really on the card. So yeah, that was an interesting thought there, Quint, but I don't think that the dynamics are quite the same. That said, this part of Asia, if you really want to talk about big power politics and so on, you really want to look at Korea. They've actually always had to balance the United States, Japan, Russia, and China. And they've been pretty much screwed by everybody. Japan's always been one of the players in that. And this is why everyone has such an allergy to Japan becoming involved again. It was Japan going in and really upsetting the balance there, where China really had control of of Korea for all of that time, and Russia was sort of coming in, and it was really Japan toppling Russia and being willing to be aggressive against China is really what sort of led to the colonial period. And Koreans sort of blamed the suffering that happened under that. Which itself is a complicated story, but yes, basically it was when Japan started throwing its weight around that people got particularly screwed. So yeah, I don't think Japan's going to do that again either. Anyway, give me some more topics, or else I'm gonna stop the show because I've got nothing tonight. What else have we got here? We've got Believe in Yourself. No one is in there at the moment, but you can dual screen 2 apps at once. I don't know what that's talking about, so there we go. I see apparently there is another hangout at the same time, so I'm sorry about that. I see that you're trying to dual screen in the comments. Good to see you, Tai Nakamura. Snap here, a student yesterday, mainland Chinese. The topic was travel. It started off with Japan. I asked if she liked Japan. Without hesitation, she replied, no. Boo, as they say in Chinese. Bear in mind, China is a very big country. Even mainland China is a very big country. I've been to Dalian for work. Dalian is very China friendly. Dalian was actually like part of metropolitan. It wasn't part of Manchuria. It was part of metropolitan Japan during the colonial period. Again, it should never have been a colony at all. But there are Chinese there who like Japan. That said, you will find China, Beijing, ambiguous at best, generally hostile, and the further south you go in China, certainly the worst things that China did, that Japan did, certainly was more directly invading. Manchuria was complicated. Japan did really terrible things in Manchuria, but at the same time it also built up. It tried to treat Manchuria as part of Japan. So the more north you go in China, the more ambivalent you'll find, particularly I believe Qing Chinese, as opposed to Han Chinese, were actually treated kind of favorably by the Japanese in some ways. So there's always a little bit more ambiguity. Same with Taiwanese, of course. They generally, some will tell you straight up that they think that the Japanese treated them better than the mainland Chinese, who came and basically put 50 years of martial law on Taiwan. So China's 1 billion people, but you will find, yes, based on education and based on direct historical experience, you'll find certainly a vast majority of Chinese will have very negative opinions of China, even of Japan even today, but you'll also find that particularly in the north, that there is a diversity of thought about that. But certainly sad to hear that, the J-Vlog. The next one was Korea. She didn't even know where the country was located. A Korean didn't know where Japan was located? That's surprising. But there you go. Butter. Sergeant Bilko, don't do it. Don't go there. Don't go there. I'm going to resist. I'm not going to get into it. Did I talk about Airbnb? Yes, Steve from Berkeley, I did. And basically, here's my view. The regulations were absolutely going to happen. I mean, you can't just rent out rooms inside your apartment. You're at the very minimum, all these people are violating their leases with illegal sublets. At the very best, there are laws regulating in Japan. I mean, if you want to set up a bread and breakfast in Japan, there have always been laws for that, and it's just basically ignored that. So when laws came in taking into account Airbnb, in order to allow Airbnbs to operate, that required at a minimum the permission of the building owner to actually run the Airbnb, and this immediately meant that 80,000, 80% of Airbnbs in Japan couldn't operate. I mean, that was a problem that Airbnb profited from, willfully ignored. And when this announcement came out, because they kept trying to stall until the last minute, and when this notice came out, all of these customers got screwed, and Airbnb basically, in order to make money, allowed these people to get screwed. So, I think, yes, the government could and should have given a longer notice period and not screwed so many tourists, but at the same time, Airbnb just let this happen, if you ask me, and they should be paying compensation to everybody who's without accommodation because of this. Now that there is a framework and clear, I think pretty reasonable rules for the new Airbnb structure, hopefully, it will, as a business, thrive, and there'll be other businesses like it set up in Japan. But I think it was a disaster that was basically set up through blind stupidity by the government, but also greed by Airbnb. And I don't know, I think everybody just screwed that one up, repeating what I said earlier. The political mess in the UK. Dave Hunter, I am so glad. I have no idea what you're talking about, the political mess in the UK. But there we go. Quint Rankin, China seems to be throwing its weight around now. Yes, it is, but it's doing it in the South China Sea. It's picking its fights with weaker countries first. Philippines, Vietnam, countries which China can basically screw if it wants to, and it's doing that. Question really is the litmus test is really what it will do about the Diaoyu Islands, as China calls them, the Senkaku Islands that are part of Okinawa Prefecture. The more aggressive that China becomes around those, particularly if it ever goes to physically occupy those islands, that'll be a test, that'll be a signal that pretty much it's willing to get into a fight with America. Perhaps if Trump continues pulling back, as it looks like he's willing to do over Korea, and he wants to do it from Japan as well, with the excuse of saving money. If that's the case and China does that, then Japan's going to be in big trouble. And yes, China looks like it's testing America over this, and it's pretty much just waiting America out. And it's from that perspective as well, I wouldn't be surprised at all if China was going to spend money on supporting the current US government, because it's doing exactly what it wants. And who says that America has to be the world's police officer? I mean, this is a role that America as a great nation status has taken in the last century, and I believe that Japan and the world's had a lot of peace as a result of it, and prosperity as a result of it. But if America pulls back from that, yeah, I'm myself worried about what China will do. But at the moment, we're not quite there. So the filibuster on an upskirting ban law. I didn't know about that, Dave Hunter. Well, that's just silly. I think I read something about this, didn't I? That yeah, I mean that's just silliness anyway. Believe in yourself. This is indeed the hangout to watch my show. Thank you for joining, Mr. Cordy Chep. Even after fighting a brutal war against the US, the Vietnamese are friendly as ever with them. Yes, indeed, the Vietnamese are wonderful. And by the way, the third biggest group of immigrants to Japan at the moment. There's a lot here, and yeah, Vietnamese are an amazing people, actually. I don't know many. I've only known a few sort of immigrant and child of immigrant Vietnamese, but I think like race and nationality are social constructs that don't actually exist, of course, but to the extent that people who identify, who have a cultural identity of being Vietnamese, to me have been consistently extremely impressive. Plus the food is awesome. So I'm very glad to have more Vietnamese restaurants and good hard-working Vietnamese people here in Japan. But yes, indeed, they also seem to have done very well, given that they have every right to be really shitty with America. I think you're right. They seem to be very nice. What about organic matter on Mars? As a topic, well, organic matter on Mars. It's kind of interesting. There's actually, I mean, I love this. The first probe, I think, to land on Mars and broadcast back from the surface of Mars was the Viking lander in 1976, and they never had like those Star Trek, you know, detect signs of life on surface kind of things. They had very limited instrumentation, as indeed do the current probes on Mars. But even in 1976, they actually found there were like variations of, you know, for example, I think it was carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. They found intensity would go up and down, and I think at first it was dismissed as an anomaly, but this might just be a conspiracy thing that I read somewhere. But it's kind of funny, when they were looking at the data, they dismissed the rhythm because it looked really kind of irregular, but it actually matched the Martian day, which implied that it was something there that was using a local planet rhythm, you know, like a sort of a plants being active and sleeping during the night kind of a thing. And again, now we're finding seasonal variation based on Martian seasons of methane in the atmosphere. And you know, we know what causes methane on Earth. Basically, anything from algae and insects to elephants and humans shitting, farting. You know, that's what causes methane. It's a natural output of, you know, when we're done processing, photosynthesizing, doing all of that. It's a natural output chemical of organic processes. And Mars has, you know, now we are measuring regular methane there on Mars. Now, of course, it could be from, you know, chemical processes. Of course, there's no. It still is an indirect sign of there being organic life now or in the past on Mars. But there again, I mean, I'm still very open to the idea that there could be some form of microbial life somewhere there. That's actually causing this. In fact, if you ask me, given what we now know about life, especially, I mean, when I was a kid in school, we had this idea life cannot survive below minus, you know, 5 degrees and above 70 degrees, you know, Celsius. We've since learned that, you know, there are certain types of life in particular that can live in the vacuum of space. They can live hundreds of degrees above and below Celsius. And this is just on Earth. You know, this is 4 billion years to adapt to this place, and they can live, you know, well within the realms that life can adapt on Mars. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's super interesting that they've found more evidence of organic, not just material, but also processes on Mars. And you know, I believe it'll be an almost boring announcement when it comes out, that I think they'll find that there are basically microbial forms of life on Mars, you know, and I hope that's the case. I mean, we've found Mars meteorites on Earth which contain organic matter, you know, so even without going to Mars, we've been able to confirm that organic material exists on Mars. In fact, is, you know, we're learning more and more that it's not just Mars. The moons of Jupiter, which, you know, by the way, are just the asteroid belt away from Mars as well, you know, seem to be full of moons that regularly squirt out material which appears to contain organic matter. So, you know, I think that is actually a super cool topic there, Robert Ryan, and I believe that, yeah, organic matter on Mars, it's got to be there, and this is why I just can't wait. I love how rocket technology is progressing. I love how SpaceX is talking about how they're going to be getting people on trips, you know, out into space really soon, and, you know, everyone's going to aggressively be going there, and I guess it puts us in, if you do find life on Mars, then do we have a right to go there and risk polluting it or bringing, you know, Earth microbes over there? But I think, yes, I think we have to do it. Who knows? I mean, even on the moon might be possible. So I don't know. I mean, I believe that, you know, I think that life on other planets is only really controversial if you believe in, I mean, if you're a fundamentalist religious person who believes in the idea that the universe is based primarily around Earth and primarily around people. And I think even the most religious people are getting around the idea. They still have this idea that animals can't have souls or whatever. There's got to be something that makes us special, that made God give all this focus on us. I mean, God looks like us, I mean, according to the Bible, right? So the idea that God would be making life on other planets, it would be really disturbing, I think, to someone you know, who's completely fundamentalist about the Bible. But there again, you know, I think to anyone else who just looks objectively at the universe, you know, it's a no-brainer. I don't think it would even, I think it would be a big news story for a wee while, but I think it's inevitable, and it's absolutely that we're going to find some form of life at some point on Mars. I mean, it just seems, you know, I would bet money that in fact we'll even find it on Venus, which has like a 500-degree surface temperature. And you know, sulfuric acid atmosphere and rivers of lead on the surface. I think we'll find life there. That's how optimistic I am. I mean, you know, Mars is easy. Organic chemistry is just chemistry involving carbon compounds. Indeed, it has nothing to do with living things. Well, it can have something to do with living things. It's not necessarily so. But I think what we're learning about life now, I think, shows that it's much more resilient than we thought that it was. So there you go. Actually, it's been proposed that Terran life could have originated on Mars. Robert Ryan, well, this is the meteor theory, indeed. Well, remember, there's this whole theory that Mars was formed by a collision with Earth, like it split off from Earth. And we've found, you know, organic meteorites containing organic materials that are Martian meteorites. So, yeah, I mean, I get the feeling that the whole thing is just a hodgepodge. I mean, there are comets flying around everywhere. There, you know, solar systems exploding and reforming. I think we're all probably, you know, a bit mixed up, but there you go. Trump said he's pulling back. He wants to have more countries take responsibility. Yeah, this is the defense thing. And, you know, I mean, again, if he wants Japan to pay for itself, well, Japan's going to be in a really interesting position if it keeps Article 9 and China asserts itself and America pulls back. You know, Japan won't be able to stop China walking in. But frankly, even if Japan did have a military, I don't know that it would really be able to stop an asset of China. But I really hope that that's not an eventuality that plays out. It's the real Area 51, indeed it might be. You say it might have something to do with the temperature. Would I ever travel to space if I could afford it? Tai Nakamura, yes I would, hell yes. I mean, that was like, when I was a kid, until I was like 15, that was like the job I wanted to have. And it's a huge disappointment to see space travel, or manned space travel, personed space travel, who knows, become such so deprioritized. And this is why I'm so excited by SpaceX, by Blue Origin, by Virgin Space, all these companies that seem to be now bringing it back into something that could maybe within like 10 years make it realistic to go on trips into space. Certainly suborbital flights are going to be within the next decade easily reachable, you know, sort of Alan Shepard flights. The idea that there could be a whole bunch of floating space stations around Earth that you'll be able to go up and spend time in as well. Oh damn, I mean, remember, so apart from the fact that I was an astronomy geek, I was also an astrophysics geek. I was obsessed with the space shuttle and wanting to be a space shuttle astronaut. Bad timing, so yeah, I think I'm going to be probably a retiree when it happens, but damn yes, Tai Nakamura, hell yes, I want to go into space. Plus when you get older, you know, the radiation stuff you don't have to worry about so much either, so it might be good timing for me. But I would go up there and I would want to go up and go into a space telescope or do astronomy and just play around up there. But yes, I would totally be up for going into space if I could afford it. Whoa. Let's jump ahead. Let me try to catch up here. We all know that all the Mars rovers are running around in the desert in the US. So no wonder about the organic matter, says Sergeant Booker. You've been watching that movie, that conspiracy Mars landing movie, which everyone in America believes is why they think they faked the moon landing. Yes, that's right. Look up the video of Obama talking about illegal immigrants in 2005. I don't want to look up anything to do with America and illegal immigrants. I mean, geez, what a mess. Interesting view, Mr. Cordy Chat. Thank you for the optimism. Well, who knows? Maybe that will be what changes the situation, that choice. The Vatican has done an about-face on the whole alien thing quite some time ago. Well, I think it just recognizes that it's just an inevitability. Plus, you know, I mean, hell, maybe they'll have to write a new chapter or something. Pink Floyd should travel to the dark side of the moon. Hell yes. Are they still alive, all of them? I hope so. And if they do, yes, absolutely. Chirality, I don't even understand what that means. Russians will be on the dark side of the desert. I don't understand that either. Sergeant Bilko is indicative of life. Chirality is indicative of life. That is a type of organic material that they're looking for. You're actually more knowledgeable than me. I don't know about that. Let's look this up. Chirality. Chemistry is a geometric property of some molecules and ions. So Okay, well this is interesting. But I mean, so right, we can only at the moment indirectly infer, and we don't have instrumentation which can properly pick up this stuff. And plus, you'd have to directly measure a sample. But I'm hopeful that we'll find that sort of a thing. What else we got here? Just land in the desert at night. Desert. You're spelling it wrong. Stop it. It's not a question of stopping China from invading Japan. It's a question of making the price so high that they won't do it. Well, that's not going to happen. I mean, I think probably the price of making the price high enough will be maybe if Japan is so full of old people that the social welfare will just make the place look unattractive. I mean, Japan doesn't have any natural resources to speak of, so you've got that. But there again, I mean, China does have this big nationalism based trying to get settle scores with everyone thing, which is a little bit disturbing. But yes, indeed. The current technology flying around space would also come with the expectation of a shortened lifespan. Well, that's why I'm okay going up there old. But there again, radiation shielding, all that sort of stuff. Who knows? You've been watching Flat Earther videos. Now that's some fun. Oh man, I don't want to go near that stuff. It's brain pollution. Reality is mirror images. Okay, so I see. That's the whole idea of the splitting thing. Oh, that's kind of cool. Okay, I will look that up. Sergeant Buckley, a very good book from Jose Farmer, Jesus on Mars. Who knows? He could be from Mars. As I said in the beginning, let me recap what I said in the very beginning of the show. 1, I'm back. 2, I'm jet lagged. 3, I'm completely unprepared. 4, I do have one big announcement, which is that the YouTube summer party is on September 1st at the Tokyo Sports Cafe in Roppongi, right near the Roppongi main intersection. It's going to be from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m, 3,000 yen Nomi Hodai. Get in there a little bit early so that you're in there for the full Nomi Hodai, you're not lining up for half an hour. And after, I mean, we'll just take over the place and stay there. You just have to pay for the drinks, that's the only difference. But the place will be all hours for those 2 hours. It will be awesome, like we've been doing every year. There's going to be these screens. I'm going to see if we can get some music in there. Victor's going to come up for it. You can hang out with us in person. It's a great night out. It's we didn't get to do it last year because of the because I was traveling in America and Victor was also traveling at that time. So last year was the first time since like 2011 that we didn't do a summer party, but we are doing it again this year. It's going to be awesome. The Hanami was awesome that Zach organized this year. That went really, really well, and I think it'll be the same sort of vibe. I think that the community is back and it's a great party. It's really easy to hang out. It's right there on Roppongi. So if you are in Japan, come to Tokyo, make your plans for Saturday, September 1st. If you're not in Japan, come to Japan on September 1st and hang out with us. It'll be an awesome party. Look out for more announcements about that. With regards to my Chan TV, bugs have no progress on the bugs on the public site, but we have been doing some stuff offline, which will lead to, hopefully, I'm hoping to get the site really final, to get the launch version of it ready. And then I'd like to think about doing a Kickstarter for making a mobile app for it. Yes. So look out for that. Why is Japan not using more geothermal tech? It's using quite a bit of geothermal tech. I mean, Japan has pretty significant power needs. It works for New Zealand. It doesn't work quite on the same scale for Japan. But for local power generation, it does use it, the JVlog. What else have we got here? We've got summer party. Oh, you're going to visit in September. Well, make sure you're there for September 1st. Schedule your flight so that you're here at that time and hang out with us. In fact, hell, if you're here, I mean, we could do some Tokyo Digital Cruise stuff, right? I mean, we could hook something up. So I think that would be pretty good. The JVlog, the 2.5 Oyajis, what happened there? Well, Victor and I basically, apart from having, I mean, he's got 2 kids now, and he's in Florida at the moment. I mean, I think he's about to go to Florida. Apart from just having generally very difficult lives, we also decided that we'd only do the show if we have guests. And it's kind of been a bit hard for us to arrange guests lately, but where there is a good reason, we will do it on those Saturday nights. And we'll probably do a couple, I think, before the summer party, since we are organizing it. We want everyone to come along. But yeah, it's just mainly life and time and all that sort of stuff and keeping things simple. What is the weather situation in Japan in September? It's still hot, especially at September 1st. I mean, August and July are hell. September is still going to be hot. It'll be summer. It won't quite be the worst time of year, but it'll still be pretty hot. So plan for a Japanese summer when you come, and you'll be fine. Blame the onsen monopoly, yes sir. Oh, that's another reason. Again, maybe geothermal is tough. They do it in Rotorua in New Zealand, and it is linked to onsens not being as active. Mogberry Pie is working here now. You can actually go to one of these for a change if you're not broke. Well, it's 3,000 yen, which for a night in Roppongi, for a Nomi Hodai is as good a deal as you'll find. They've been really good to us. So definitely Mogberry Pie if you are here September 1st, Saturday night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. You got to come out. You got to come out and say hello. We got to hang out. Nominate Ty as a guest. Indeed, Ty, if you can make it, seriously, like let's do some real Tokyo Digital Cruise stuff live. Let's do like a Chemical Brothers shit. Seriously, like that would be cool, right? You got to get out here. Okay, we got to plan a little bit of a thing, right? In fact, see if we can get Sade, see if we can get her to sing. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Okay, like seriously, if you can do that, that'll be a thing. In fact, any member of the Tokyo Digital crew that can make it here September 1st, I mean, let's make that a little bit of a concert. What do you reckon? That's my idea. In spite of the fact I said I was going to come on and jump off very, very quickly and keep it very quiet and quick, the time right now is 11:20, which means that I've talked for 50 minutes non-stop, even though I had nothing to talk about. Have I shave his head? No, I wouldn't do that to him, but it would be good to jam music indeed. Mr. Geopolitics can never make it there. No, you can make it anywhere. It's up to you. Cordy. I don't know. I've covered all the stuff. Catwell, stop doing. Actually, I should take that off. I'm sorry, Catwell. You don't have to do that. I do appreciate it, but you don't have to do it. I do like that. Dave Hunter, I'm glad that you appreciate that. Shall I do a tune? Let's do a tune. I haven't done a tune for a while. I've got nothing prepared. Let's just do an outro like that. I hope you enjoyed the show. Next week I will be prepared. It's up to your stupid uni schedule. Well, check it out. I mean, you know the date now. It's September 1st. So, get in there. And let me see if I can hook up a tune. Give me a style of music. Hip-hop, techno, drum and bass. Well, let me know what you dig. I will do it. Let me plug in. That one. Plug in. And plug in. Hip hop. I see hip hop. I see multiple hip hop, so it looks like we're doing hip hop. That's good. I was hoping you'd say hip hop. I'm feeling like hip hop myself. My life. Oh, let me just check that we have sound. That looks like we got it. Okay. What's happening with that? That's not saved. Okay, let's just save that and then do a new track. So we've got a choice of slow hip hop, like 88 beats per minute, 92 beats per minute, or fast hip hop, 110. Let's do 88. I don't know, let's do it 91. Let's do it 91. Quantize at 16. Let's pick an interesting key. Let's make it gypsy key. F sharp. Okay, let's pick. I like these downloaded beats. Let's do one of these. Something that's close to 90. Let's try that again. That's it. It's a bit laggy. It's always when I love recording that I do chords. Nice. Damn, this is one. Okay, so now I'm going to play the outro. Here we go. Ready? So Pensa, sounds pretty cool. That's the outro, and that's the show. Thank you for joining me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. See you again next week. Be more organized. Enjoy it. Have a good one. Peace. You gotta come here, Toad. We gotta play together at the party. Peace.